I'm Jenna Miscavige. I was born and raised in Scientology. I left when I was 21 years old and wrote a book about it. My uncle, David Miscavige, is the leader of Scientology, and this is my YouTube channel. Hi guys, I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Today I decided I'm going to go back to answering some of your guys' questions. And so the one I have for today is from Laura Font. And her question is, did you have a car or driver's license when you left Scientology? I know many did not. I'm curious how it would be learning to drive as an adult. I thought that was such an awesome question because the answer is no. I did not have a driver's license when I left Scientology. Some people who were in the Sea Org, which is Scientology's most dedicated group, where they work 115-hour weeks, 7 days a week, and they don't have time off. They sign 1 billion year contracts. I was a member of the Sea Org. And some people had jobs where they were required to drive, like maybe they worked at a folder warehouse, or they would drive people like maybe to the doctor or something. But I never had a job where it was to drive. And so like in the Sea Org, you kind of don't have money to buy a car, to have insurance, because you only get paid $50 a week. So if you drive as a Sea Org member, it's kind of rare. It's also hard to find parking at some of the Scientology churches if you're a Sea Org member and you drive, because they reserve the parking for the public. So not only did I not know how to drive, but I didn't really know my way around anywhere. And that was almost the bigger problem. But so when I left the Sea Org when I was 22, to start out with, I worked at the same place as my husband. So we would drive to work every day. So for a good year or two, I didn't need to drive. But it also was something that very much held me back from getting a different job, because the truth was that the job I was at, it was run by Scientologists who were Dallas's parents and their partner, and it was run with Scientology's organizational technology. So people were still required to write reports on each other. They were required to, if their statistic was lower than the week before, they were required to apply Scientology formulas in order to improve them. They were even required to write down certain confessions, and it was just not where I wanted to be working at all. And in Scientology, not only did I not know how to drive, but I was rarely like in a car. Like I was always, if I was being transported from where we lived to where we worked, it was like in a bus or a van, and I wasn't really looking around at where I was. Like sometimes these buses or vans were so stuffed that you couldn't really see outside. So even to some degree, like being on the road was just not even something that I was comfortable with or used to, or paying attention to directions. So basically, when I decided that I could no longer work at this jewelry store where me and Dallas had worked, Dallas is my ex-husband, just because of all the Scientology that was going on there. Dallas's father was the owner of the company, and he would pull me into his office regularly to basically try to get information from me and report it back to the church. And he would try to get me to go back to the church and handle things the way that they wanted them to be handled. And it just became too much. There was another Scientologist who was working there as well, and he even like wanted to put me on the e-meter, which is Scientology's version of a lie detector. And he wanted to like do Scientology counseling on me to improve me so that I could go back to Scientology. And it just became too much. And so about 2 years in, I just had to learn how to drive, but it was very, very scary for me. And so at first my ex-husband Dallas was teaching me how to drive, but like, to be honest, guys, I'm not just being mean. He's a horrible teacher. He's a horrible driving teacher. Because he would be like, we would practice in the parking lot, by our apartment. It was like a Target parking lot, and I would like stop really jerkily, and then he was like, why do you stop like that? Instead of being like, hey, I noticed that you stopped kind of jerkily, if you press on the brake pedal slowly, then you can actually stop more smoothly. Now, obviously, he had been driving since he was really young because he didn't grow up in the Sea Org like I did. So maybe this was really obvious to him, but it wasn't obvious to me. And so we just like basically like wanted to kill each other. So I wound up having to hire a driving instructor, and he had like one of those cars that like had brakes and like had like student driver on it, and it was kind of embarrassing because I was 22, but it was totally worth it. It was way better, and I learned in no time, and I felt much more comfortable knowing that he could like stop the car if I got out of control. And so I learned pretty quickly the guy was kind of a creep. He kept like being like, "Oh, your name is Jenna, like that porn star," and he like kept bringing it up for some weird reason. But anyways, so I learned how to drive, and I got my driver's license in the truck we had at the time, which actually Dallas still has, which my son is about to get. And I passed the test, and then kind of right after that, I got a new car. I got this like red Mini Cooper that had a checkered top. It was kind of like the car I always dreamed about having when I was in Scientology, but I finally got it. And then I applied for a new job. I got the job, and I wound up working at that job for 7 years. But my like first day there, I started, and they were like, and I told them, I was like, "Oh, I got a new car." They were like, "Oh, it's so cute." And they were like, how about you take us all to lunch in it?" And I didn't want to tell them that I had like just gotten my driver's license like 1 minute before, like literally like days before I started working there. And to be honest, I was still a horrible driver. Like, it's not like I had to put in driving time because I was over 18. You only have to put in driving time if you need a permit. So I just had to pass a test. So I was kind of like a horrible driver, and it was so scary. All of these people at my new work all jumped into my tiny Mini Cooper, and I was afraid of getting lost, and I was afraid of accidentally getting on the freeway at any minute, because even though I knew how to drive, I didn't go on the freeway. And so they all jumped in the car, and it was like so scary, and they were like, "Whoa, slow down." Finally I told them that I only just got my license, and they were like, "Dude, what the F?" But they wound up all like kind of learning about my story, and then we would like laugh about it later on. But it was so scary. And yeah, and actually one of the big reasons, because I was really afraid to get my license. I was afraid to drive. I was terrified to get on the freeway, like unnaturally. So I but it was something that I knew I had to drive if I wanted to have a kid, and I wanted to have a kid. I wanted to have my son. Well, I didn't know he was going to be my son, but I wanted to have a kid who wound up being my son. And so that was a big part of it too. That was like the big impetus to learn how to drive. But I still did not go on the freeway. Like, so I got my license probably when I was 24. So like almost like a year and a half or 2 years after I left Scientology. And then I only started going on the freeway when I was 28. Like, and basically when I would be driving around San Diego, I would just take like the roads, and I worked in downtown San Diego. And so I would just take this really long way to work because I was so afraid of going on the freeway. And then sometimes, like at that time, there wasn't like GPS on the phone. I had a GPS. Well, later, my dad got that for me for Christmas, but I would just have to like have MapQuest directions, and I'm terrible at directions. Like if someone's like, "What direction is this in?" and if I guess, like, you should always just go the opposite way. Like I'm just, it does not come natural to me. It does not come natural to my son. My daughter, it does come natural to her, and she feels like she's surrounded by incompetent people, which is probably true. My ex-husband is great at directions. Like, he always knows where north, west, and south is, and east. And I don't even know how he knows this. So when I would be like driving around, like if I had to go to a doctor's appointment, like if I was taking my son early on, I would be like thinking I was about to get on the freeway, and I would call Dallas. I'd be like, Dallas, I think I'm about to get on the freeway. I'd be like screaming and so scared. And he'd be like, okay, well, what do you want me to do about it? And I was like, why aren't you helping me? And I feel like I had this problem where, like, it's like if you go onto the freeway, if the on-ramp is right next to the off-ramp, they put a sign in the middle that says, do not enter. And you're like, that could apply to either side. And so I'm like, it says this is the on-ramp, and there's a do not enter sign. And I just think that there's something like where I don't see the direction I'm supposed to be going in. I just see everything. It's kind of like when I watch football. Like, I don't even know where I'm supposed to look, so I don't even know what's happening. Or like on video games, like that, I'm horrible at video games because for some reason everybody understands the path you're supposed to like walk. Like I can't even walk, like move forward on video games. Everyone sees the path you're supposed to take, but I don't see it. And that's kind of like how it was with driving. So it was really, really traumatizing. Like I lived in constant fear of getting on the freeway. And then we moved to Virginia for a few years, like 3 years, and the freeways were much smaller there, and there's much less traffic. People don't go as fast, and there are a lot of like windy roads, and we lived on a dirt road. And I feel like I got a lot better control of the car, and I like could do the freeway in sort of like a lower gradient than like full on California crazy freeways with like people with road rage. And so when we moved back to San Diego, which was in 2012, and I started going back to my work again, I would have to drive like 45 minutes to downtown San Diego, and I just had to get on the freeway. And as soon as like I started doing it, it was like such a relief. It was such a relief not to be afraid of all the freeway stuff, and in some ways it's easier, but it wasn't until I was literally 28 years old. Well, maybe a little earlier if you count Virginia freeways, but they barely count. And now it's like nothing. But yeah, it was it was quite a journey because my parents never taught me how to drive. I think when I was really, really little, my dad like put me on his lap and had me steer the wheel like once or twice. But beyond that, I wasn't really in a position where I was like, where I had any reason or time or anything like that to learn it. And so it was kind of hard. Like it held me back. It was something that was really, really scary for me. And it was a bit of a journey, but I finally did it. And now it's like nothing for me. I can like drive long distances. I can like drive to LA. I drive all over the place, and I can zip in and out of traffic. My kids think that I have a lead foot, that I'm like, I kind of drive fast. And yes, the only thing is that I'm like, I don't want to say I'm the worst parallel parker, but I'm definitely not the best. When I had a Mini Cooper, I was like, oh yeah, I am an amazing parallel parker. And then it turns out that it was just because of the Mini Cooper. And so yeah, I still get a tiny bit nervous about parking, but mostly all good. I'm having a bit of a full circle moment right now because my son just got his permit, so he's ready to start driving, and I'm gonna be scared, but I am confident that I'm a better teacher than his dad. And he actually has to get a couple of hours of professional driving instruction because he's younger than 18. But in just like a couple of days, he's going to be driving us to school. Well, he can't drive by himself, so he's going to be driving me and his sister to his school to drop him off. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. All right, guys. Well, that's, I hope that answers the question. If you have any other questions for me about Scientology, about my story, or anything else, please leave them in the comments. It's fun answering these, and I want to get back to doing it. I hope you have a beautiful day, and don't forget to check out Sins of Scientology on YouTube. And if you haven't read my book already, you can find it on Amazon, and it's called Beyond Belief: My Secret Life Inside Scientology and My Harrowing Escape. All right. Bye. Hi guys, I'm now offering channel memberships with exclusive access to monthly Q&As and members only cooking videos. It's where we connect, answer your questions, and spend some time together in the kitchen. Become a member today and let's hang out.